Quickly, we're going to go around and introduce ourselves.
I'm Nicole Etienne. I'm with Rutgers Health.
And you just got to speak up so that everybody can hear you. Thank you.
I'm Nicole Etienne.
With?
Rutgers Health.
I am Marvel Fuller. I'm a guest of Nicole.
Thank you.
I'm Beverly Durant, and I'm a participant of New Jersey reentry.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm a student at Robert Wood Johnson.
Hi, my name is Sharon Carbonetti, participant of reentry program, Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I work at NJRC.
I'm Ms. Mohammed Kasuli, Director of the NJRC Patterson site.
Erin Rodriguez, New Jersey Reentry.
I'm Evelyn Mahone, New Jersey Reentry and Patterson.
Raha Chara, General Counsel of the New Jersey Reentry Corporation.
Hi, Nicole Morello with the New Jersey Coalition to End Domestic Violence.
Hi, everyone. Evelyn Cortez with Screen NJ and Rutgers Cancer Institute.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm a student at Rutgers. Hi, my name is Hipsa. I'm an M1 at Robert Wood Johnson Medical School.
And what is an M1?
First year medical student.
Okay.
Iris Novas Cooney, Community Health Education Manager for Horizon Blue Cross and Blue Shield government programs.
Heather Torres, domestic violence survivor, senior at Montclair State University.
Thanks, Ed.
Dr. Rafael Perez Figueroa with the Rutgers School of Public Health.
Gabrielle Moore, Rutgers University graduate student.
Rachel Athers, Montclair State University graduate student.
Hi, Christine Lee, student at Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Medical School.
Jasmine Allen. I'm here with Rutgers Health, Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. And I'm also a Rutgers master's student.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Klein, and I'm here from the Hackensack Reentry Program and from the ADV Domestic Violence of Bergen County.
And Dr., you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Dr. Francine Sinofsky. I was on the faculty at Robert Wood Johnson Medical School, and I'm the past district chair for our area for the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists.
So, thank you, Doctor. Okay. And then, okay, great. Whose chair is that?
Francine.
Okay, good. And we have some women coming out. So basically, we're going to start with my friend Nicole. This is a really, this is a really important conversation. So, Nicole, could you just tell us a little bit about the impact of domestic violence on the lives of women and why domestic violence has such a negative impact in terms of the criminal justice system? And I just have to ask you to speak up so that everybody can hear you.
I'll try to summarize as best I can. So the impact of domestic violence on an individual is pervasive. Some of us had an opportunity to chat earlier, and oftentimes we think of physical violence. We think of a black eye. We think of somebody being killed in the stories that we sometimes see in the news. But domestic violence starts with non-physical forms of power and control and coercive control in relationships.
Could you speak up a little louder so everybody can hear?
Sure. And I would say that sometimes domestic violence never even turns physical. It may always stay in that coercive control, financial abuse, not allowing individuals to see family and friends, to go out and have a job, to navigate freely. And so much of what's been talked about already this morning, when we think about what survivors need, it's housing, it's childcare, it's healthcare, it's the things that all of us need to be able to live and thrive within our communities. What's happened traditionally, and we'll take responsibility as the domestic violence community, that we've put a lot of emphasis historically on law enforcement and court-based responses. And whether we're talking about disproportionate application of laws and mandatory arrest laws, victims finding themselves needing to fight back, what we often see is that survivors themselves are arrested or not believed. And so the legal system that we like to have thought was set up to help protect survivors and to improve their lives and provide safety, unfortunately, oftentimes makes things far worse and sometimes puts them in a much more vulnerable situation. And for survivors who are arrested, they're often not given access to programs like Alternatives to Domestic Violence or many of the other programs that are available in the county because they've been labeled as a defendant now. And so it makes it much.
So
much
I'm
more
gonna
difficult.
just jump in. So the point that we make here, I think, is that the women, the victims of domestic violence, can be, ironically, become themselves the focus of criminal investigations. And often that's after a prolonged period of domestic violence and abuse and tragedy. So I'm just going to ask, we're going to ask if anybody wanted to share from their own personal reflection who themselves were a victim of domestic violence, how the court system either intentionally or unintentionally changes that. Does anybody want to share?
I'm going to do that right now.
Okay, and can you give your name?
My name is Sharon Pagan. I've been in sobriety 17 and a half years. I'm struggling right now. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, financial, verbal, and I'm homeless at the present moment with a child with special needs. Me, myself, I do have epileptic seizure disorder. I'm staying with my sister, sleeping on her couch in Edison, New Jersey. I reached out to a couple of different agencies looking for shelter, looking for housing. And since the abuser is no longer around and I don't have a restraining order, it's hard for me to get help. And I'm knocking on doors and I don't have enough income. I have to have 2 or 3 times the amount to get an apartment. I feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place. Through God's grace and mercy, through the reentry program and through the recovery process, I'm staying clean. But I'm telling you, like, it's very difficult and it's hard trying to survive and surviving my emotions. I go through a lot because on a lot of days, like, he was helping me financially and I stayed in that relationship thinking I wasn't good enough, right? I'm listening to that, who told you to think for yourself? Just stay in the house and do what I tell you to do. Long as he was providing until I got sick and tired of being sick and tired of 6 months ago. And I made a decision to leave and I haven't looked back. And I'm grateful that I'm able to look in the mirror today and know that I can survive without this man because I am worthy. And eventually I will get an apartment. And I know that somebody will help me and will guide me to the right resources and get the help that me and my kids need, even if it's a 2-bedroom apartment or something like that. And I'm here today on behalf of women in my situation. I wasn't physically abused, but I was abused financially and verbally abused. But I know if I would have stayed in that relationship long enough, 1 out of 10, my family probably would have found me in a garbage can or probably would have found me dead somewhere. And I thank God for the strength and believing in myself and knowing that I can do better by myself with or without a man. And taking it step by step and out and asking for help because that's what I needed to do was to ask for help. And when I did ask for help, my sister did open her door and receive me.
Sure.
I'm also,
Could you give your name?
my name is Erin Rodriguez. I'm a part of the New Jersey Reentry in Patterson. I'm a victim of domestic violence for several years, little under a decade. And on your topic, it's a vicious cycle. And a lot of women end up becoming addicts because of not just the emotional abuse, but physical abuse, not being able to tolerate. For staying in a situation that you just can't get out of because there isn't enough resources for us as women. In my case, I went to a domestic violence shelter. It was a high risk due to organized crime. And I was there 3 different times. The first restraining order I got on the perpetrator, and then the subsequent enough was. So the first restraining order I got against, the perpetrator, and then the subsequent one was put on me.
So that ironically, you had the
I
restraining,
defended myself.
you defended yourself, and then you become the focus of.
Absolutely, and I also got an assault charge. It was downgraded, but even still, it's a blemish on my record, and a slap in the face by, you know, the legal system, to be quite honest.
Sure. Thank you. And before Francine is here, and Francine Lafrac is our benefactor, and she supported the Francine A. Lafrac Wellness Center for Women upstairs on the 3rd floor. And we just shared, supported with microgrants, women who are in crisis. And Francine, before we go further down this roundtable discussion, do you want to share a few words about domestic violence, sexual abuse, and human trafficking, and the importance of being supportive of women?
I just think it's important for all of you to know that we are here for you, that you're not invisible and you're not alone. And we're thinking of you, and we're putting programs that you can take advantage of to deal with your mental well-being, to give you the mental support you need to deal with the trauma and the shame and all the difficulties, as well as some of the court fees and different things that you have to deal with on a daily basis that seem overwhelming. That the reentry program that Jim has put together and Dr. Bachman's put together to deal with your well-being reminds you that you're a person and people care about you and you're not invisible. So please take advantage of them. Please spend the time and let all of us know how you're doing and what your way. We want to help you and we want you to heal and recover, and we care, and please don't forget about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Francine.
Hi, my name is Heather Torres. I'm a domestic violence survivor. I left my abuser and he convinced me to come back home. And when I came back home, he strangled me. And he was arrested. He admitted that he strangled me because he felt justified for leaving him. He was arrested. I did receive help from the court. I joined ADB from the prosecutor's suggestion. But unfortunately, he was friends with the police officers in my town, in the town that we lived in, and I made a lot of police reports that were thrown out because of this. But finally, he was arrested for contempt of court, and yeah, that's my story. It's my situation.
Good. Thank you. Let's just keep going around. If anybody else, sure, if you give your name.
My name is Kathleen Klein, and I'm a domestic survivor.
You only have to give your first name or give whatever you want. Thanks, Kath.
I'm also 9 months sober from alcohol.
Hey!
This is my folder on my ex. This is all my police reports, restraining orders, TROs. It took me 2 years. It took me 2 years to get my final restraining order through because he wouldn't leave me alone. I finally got it through with the help of the ADV, the VCCO. I got a lawyer and I got it through. But now my ex has come through me through the technology. He's hacked my phone, my computer. He's put cameras in my apartment. He hacks into the Wi-Fi's. So now he can't get to me physically, but he's coming to get me through the technology. And that's something you don't hear about anymore.
Amen.
It's new.
It's very important.
He's also
Cyber stalking.
He's also a veteran from the Army, or the Navy. So on his license, he has that vet sign on his license. So he gets away with everything. And me trying to defeat this man in court and against the system has been a really, really hard time. And now it's me against the technology and trying to prove myself. They've put me in hospitals because they thought that I was mentally insane. And I'm just trying to tell my story. So that's why I'm here today, to let awareness know that they don't come for you physically and mentally anymore. They're coming to get you through the technology. And it's going to be a huge problem in the future.
And it's an interesting problem because frequently law enforcement says, well, it might not be a crime or it's a civil issue, but it's basically interfering. I don't know the particulars of your case, but we've had other women where people control their bank accounts, people interrupt, or people will stop payments for a credit card. And so it's not that somebody's taking your money, but by virtue of access to technology, they're impacting your mail, they're impacting your credit status, they're impacting your banking. So it's cyber stalking. So they literally stalk and impact your life.
I had to file identity theft because he's my ex-boyfriend. I've only was with him for 3 years. I met him on an online website. So online dating is very, very hazardous, very dangerous. I've never met this man, obviously, in my life. It was somebody I met online. So that's a whole other problem that needs to be addressed through not only in New Jersey, but every state, everywhere, online, anything, even with the kids are online with their games and stuff. But he's gotten my social security number because he was my ex. So he knows all of my personal information, my birthday, my first school I went to, my pet's favorite name, my everything. So he has all of that on me. I can't break my past because that's who I am. So now I have to develop all new answers, and I just have to make them up out of the blue. So I basically have to start all over again with everything from bank accounts to everything. I have to start over.
And it's difficult, right? Because then you're trying to convince the police and law enforcement, whether it's the county prosecutor or the attorney general's office, what this person is doing is actually a crime because they're impacting my ability to navigate, to control my financial wherewithal, my bank accounts, my mail, my financial transactions. And it's difficult because people say, well, this is difficult than traditional, whatever that means,
right,
domestic violence, but it is violence of a different type.
Yep.
Is there any other women want to share their thoughts or their stories?
I'm Evelyn from the
Thanks, Ev.
I like that. I grew up with domestic violence, so
Ev, could you speak up so everybody can hear you
I
down?
grew up through domestic violence, so like I wanted to break that cycle and didn't even know what I was breaking. So I'm at the moment right now, I'm still in it. Like the person that I have a restraining order on, I got it for protection. And welfare social services was helping pay my motel. They stopped paying the motel because I tried to protect myself.
Ev, could you explain that so everybody understands I understand what you just said.
So I wasn't, social services helped pay for a motel because I was doing a homeless program. And when I signed up for a restraining order, they stopped paying for my motel because we were staying there together. But I was trying to protect myself. They stopped paying the motel. So that put me in a hard spot because if he didn't go to jail, the only place I had to go was with him. So he could have killed me. That's the reason why I put the restraining order. I'm 43. I never did no restraining order. And I didn't know how to go about it. So I was scared to do it. But it took 2 years to do it. He got out of jail early. And the first thing he did was hit my phone. I was so scared. Like, the director was so scared at re-entry for me. Like, I just walking around from just around the corner from, I'm in a halfway house, to the meeting. I was so scared. I forgot what day it was. Like, literally, I was just gone. But, like, I'm still going through that at the moment. And I was trying not to come here so bad, but I knew I had to be here. But I knew I didn't want to cry and feel that feel. But I came over this because I've done it before. This is not my first time. But it will be my last. You feel me? I had no
So what Ev says is really powerful because this is the interconnection between applying for benefits, whether benefits or state benefits. And ironically, what happens when you get that restraining order is you're trying to separate from that individual through which you might have applied for benefits. Do you want to share?
Sure.
Thank you. And can we have a round of applause for? I don't care what she says about Helena Muhammad. Oh, well, let's not get carried away.
My name's Shaquela Mitchell.
Thanks, Shaquela.
As of right now, an Integrity Halfway House with the CPW that's for pregnant postpartum women and the Mommy and Me program because I have a soon-to-be 4-month-old. My history is I'm in and out of domestic violence. 2 years ago, I was beaten bad in the street by my ex. Only reason he was arrested because he strangled me, and I was scared to death to even go to court because they people were after me. People were after me. People didn't want me to go to court. He kept sending messages from the jail telling me to drop the charges. As of right now, like I was using while I was pregnant, so I decided to get clean. So I'm.
Amen.
Thank you.
Can we have a round of applause for this great woman?
I have a healthy, soon-to-be 4-month-old, and I'm happy for the laws that's going to be put in place because we really do need help, especially as addicts, recovering addicts. We definitely need the help.
And so how did you feel when you were going to court to do the right thing? He's putting pressure on you. And so the difficulty is that, you know, the irony is, did you have support of law enforcement to do the right thing?
It's funny because with the first time we got into an argument, it was sort of physical. The second one was physical. The cops were called. The lieutenant said that the third time they would have to press charges, but don't fight him back, or I would have charges pressed on me too. So when he beat me in the street for 4 hours straight, I wanted to defend myself, but I can't because the cops come. I am going to jail too. The only reason he got arrested is because he strangled me. And as soon as he got out, he looked for me. And this was this year, in June he got out. And that was right before I had my son. So after I had my son, I checked in to get help because he would have just drugged me right back into using. So I'm in a much better place now. Like I said, I'm in an Integrity Halfway House with a lot of support, and my family is very supportive. So I'm good now.
Good. I just want to say thank you for this powerful testimony because I think the world needs to know, the Attorney General needs to know, legislators need to know, all of us need to know is that there are times when there's domestic violence, sexual abuse, or human trafficking, the woman victim becomes victimized, thank you, by virtue of the criminal justice process. And I think the way you just captured it was so eloquent that this blankety blank blank for 4 hours and you're trying to do so that you don't become subject to criminal charges yourself. So Dr. Bachman, do you want to talk a little bit about the importance of having protective services and what we're trying to do at reentry for these women?
Absolutely. But before I begin, I would like to introduce our panel of really distinguished clinicians, and I'm going to start with Rick Morlink, and then you could just go right down the line, who are all very involved.
So these are doctors that are here in compliments of Lord Bachman, Dr. Bachman, and the whole goal is that we're trying to engage the medical complex, the medical community to be supportive of our women.
And you just each introduce yourselves and your titles and then the line.
I'm Rick Marlink. I'm the director of Rutgers Global Health Institute. And global health doesn't mean in another country, it means health inequities. So whether it's in New Jersey or everywhere.
Thanks, Rick.
I'm Jessica Pokonani. I'm chief of our minimally invasive gynecologic surgery division at Robert Wood Hospital.
Thanks, doctor.
I'm Dr. Kusum Punjabi. I'm an emergency doctor for 15 years at Robert Wood, Rutgers, New Brunswick. And I see it all, unfortunately, the women of sex abuse, the women who come first to me for domestic violence and don't want to press charges. I'm one of the first faces they see. And we are the first lines of defense there. And I think if I get support in this, and I'm hearing about this reentry program, I'm so excited.
Yes.
I want to participate fully because then I can be that way of that mode of giving them that information. So thank you for having me here today. And I can share millions of stories where I, out of my pocket, gave the money and said, no, run where you need to run and go get the help you need. And I'm so grateful to be here.
And so, doctor, can you just end the ER?
Yeah.
Or in the emergency department, when you see a woman who's been a victim of domestic violence, what's your reaction to that woman? And just, if you could just speak bluntly, and you're the pro, but like, there aren't many resources. Can you just speak to that?
Sure. So the first thing is they don't come in for that complaint. Right? They're so afraid of charges. So I remember this case, I'll never forget a woman that came in. She had a bruise right here under her eye. And the chief complaint was she fell down the steps. And I was like, this does not make sense. She refused to undress for me. She was just shaking. And I said, you got to undress. I want to examine you. Please do that. And then when I finally undressed her, on her back, there was an entire imprint of an iron. She was beaten black and blue everywhere. And I was struggling. I called the Robert Wood Johnson, our social work, our case managers, and where do I send her? I can't send her back home. And she is so scared. The name of the person who did it. She refused to tell me, husband, boyfriend, partner. She just would not open up. So I treated her wounds. I fed her. I kept her in the ED as long as I possibly could. Longer than 3 hours. You're supposed to move them. And I refused to let her leave the ER until I contacted the local New Brunswick Township. I called the police. I said, I need to get her a place to go. And so I never could follow up and I couldn't give her the right numbers. So I think the first conversation is always very awkward because the woman feels very afraid and uncomfortable to share. And I wish we also as physicians had more training in getting that information from them and sharing the information with each other, and then giving them the resources, the actual resources, the phone call, the actual number where today, now somebody can come help you.
So what we'll do through Dr. Bachman is New Jersey Reentry will give you a list of resources and resource guide and phone numbers and emails so that you could have that in the emergency department. But I think, when we're talking trafficking, sexual abuse and domestic violence, it was interesting from the doctor's perspective, right? So I used to be a prosecutor and I would prosecute candidly sex crimes. And I mean, bad people. But I mean, what it was important that everyone here, Doc, that when you struggle as a physician, when you try to relate to the woman and try to give her advice, there aren't so many resources available to you. Is that correct?
That is correct. And not just me, all my colleagues, at least as a woman physician, I'm able to associate. But I must say that, for example, in sexual abuse cases, New Jersey has the SANE nurse program where the SANE nurse comes, collects the forensics. They're very, very good. And I have used that resource very well. And they come 24 hours a day to the ED. I only do the health, the head, neck exam, but they come and do the entire gyne exam. They take the samples. They give them the advice where to go next. But that program is working well. So something like that, if I can work with y'all.
For domestic violence.
Yes, and help develop.
And that's a different program with a different focus.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I just have to say, so I'm a gynecologist. I see patients not in the acute emergency setting, but I see lots of patients with chronic pelvic pain because that is my specialty area. And many, many times that's the initial complaint. But I have so many patients that are, unfortunately, they have experienced abuse, and it manifests in so many different ways along their entire lifespan. And I wish that there was more that is done to help women deal with the consequences of this type of abuse on their life forever. Because it's not just that, even if they can come out of that abusive situation, whether they're in it or out, I see it manifest in their pain all over, and their headaches and their migraines, their fatigue, and all of these different symptoms. And as physicians, these are my patient population that most of my colleagues are frustrated to see, because we know we can't help you. You know, we can't do as much as we really want to do. We don't have the time or the resources. And oftentimes, from my perspective, I can help you a little bit with your pelvic pain, but I can't help your housing situation. That's what I really want to focus on. I can't help your support. I can't help get you the resources you need to be able to build a career and move on, or get the mental health services that you do. So we're working on, for our chronic pelvic pain center, on building integrated programs that include integrative health, that's like acupuncture and pelvic yoga, mindfulness training, and mental health services. But there's just so much more we know that we're missing in our 20-minute gynecology system.
Right.
Thanks, Doc.
In those lines, I'm Dr. Rankita Sengupta, I'm a cardiologist, and I echo Jessica's thoughts, where I see patients, they're coming with chest pain, but the problem lies somewhere else. And sometimes when we are seeing patients, we are sometimes in a rush, right? And to kind of take the information. Why are you having the chest pain? Are you under stress? Tell me what's going on. You have to ask your patients what is causing that. Chest pain may not be coming from the heart. Chest pain could be anything. But if you're having chest pain, if you're having stress, it could damage your heart. Women's health is not just your bikinis, okay? Not just pelvis and breast. It's your overall health, okay? It's your mental health, your cardiac health. Of course, your pelvic organs, your breast, they matter, but your overall health matters. So if you are in a situation where you are facing domestic violence, you are in stress day in, day out, stress itself has been known to cause inflammation and damage your heart. As women, we seek help, going to a physician much, much later. We don't want to go to doctors. We don't want to show that we are suffering. We hold it in. Not good. We have to let it out, okay? We have to take care of ourselves so that we can be around to take care of our loved ones. That is
so I think that the first thing is to pick up on what all three of you said, and what Dr. Bachman has said, is that we need a clearer protocol for victims of domestic violence when they come in through the emergency department. So the goal is, and we're going to do what we can between New Jersey Reentry Corporation world and all of our friends here, because this is what we do. But I think on a statewide level, to echo what you said, on the same level of domestic abuse, that we need to be aware of that. Doc, did you want to respond?
That's just like how we have it for the SANE system for the sexual abuse, where there's someone we call right away, they show up 24/7. There's a person on call. That's Thanksgiving or Christmas. They're there and they come, they take the information, and then they place you where you need to go. Someone like that, I think we need for our domestic violence program, where any ER in New Jersey, if a woman walks in and she expresses she's been hurt physically, mentally, emotionally, right away we can.
But also the other
outside of it. Outside of it. In our office, and outside pregnancy, there are so many resources for pregnant women, and it puts the focus on the most important thing is the child, which is true. But the woman is still important, whether she has children, chooses not to have children, after pregnancy, before pregnancy. Probably if we address some of these things before pregnancy, we wouldn't have these issues in pregnancy.
Exactly.
So I just wanted to react. Did you want to react?
Yeah, I just, so.
Can you just reintroduce yourself again?
Sorry, Nicole Morella from the Coalition to End Domestic Violence. So ironically, tomorrow is National Healthcare is About Domestic Violence Day, which is a national movement to ensure that healthcare providers are better prepared and informed to respond. IPVhealth.org is a great resource, and we recommend providers to prepare their
Can you say that again, Nicole?
IPVhealth.org. And it is focused on healthcare providers to help you prepare your practice so that you're prepared before that patient comes in, right? And when that patient does come in, you have some protocol procedures, or you know who to reach out to. I will also add that this past January, the General's office issued a directive establishing what they call a breathe team. So it is specific to non-fatal strangulation cases. And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
And so every hospital should be prepared to be able to provide support not just to sexual assault survivors, but also domestic violence survivors survived a strangulation. We know that's a small percentage of survivors, and we need it to be broader than that. But that's definitely a step in that direction. And I would just urge everyone to be patient with survivors, right? We're not going to be able to change their whole course of their life. But I think when we provide information, when we know who our local programs are, we can help connect that. It could start that process for them, but just know because of economics, because of lack of housing, because of lack of resources, survivors may find themselves going back. And we just have to remember that's not a failure of them. It's not a failure of us. It means there's a need for more resources to prevent that from
Do they
happening.
do any kind of education when they're in school, like so that
It's for healthcare providers.
I'm not just like as though you have gone through what you've gone through, lived through it, and then came into it. Was there any to learn about it in schools, you know, so that people could speak to it, like you all now are in this code of silence, so to speak, but it should be more open because this is something that's real. It happens in every kind of society, whether you're wealthy, poor, and you were going to say something.
Yeah, what you're saying is being trained around being trauma informed. It doesn't matter what discipline you are, whether you're in medicine or in law, or it's being trained to look at the human and consider those elements: housing, food insecurity, education, training, safety. All of these things matter so that a domestic violence survivor doesn't end up going back into that
But
same
I think what the suggestion is there something specifically for victims of domestic violence, or victims of sexual abuse, or victims of human trafficking that's unique to, I mean, we do trauma-informed care reentry. We train all of our clinicians, all of our social workers, even all of our lawyers. But I think the important thing here is what are we doing for the victims of domestic violence to educate themselves?
Also, because you gave me an idea in my brain, because my kids also watch me go through a lot of this too, and there's gonna be programs after this is set up for kids to be put in therapy and counseling for what they've seen their mothers, even their fathers go through.
Yeah,
Law enforcement getting sensitivity training of some sort so that, you know, because we're invalidated a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like I was raped by my abuser, and I was invalidated because of my drug use. I was invalidated by, you know, just that case alone.
Yeah, and then, Court,
Yeah,
you can take notes.
this is such a great discussion, and I want to speak to.
But this is, I don't want to lose that though. I don't want to lose what you just said, though, is in terms of law enforcement, the importance of law enforcement understanding
Be educated.
being educated, but understanding the delicate balance.
Yeah.
So I want to capture that.
Because a lot of women don't even end up in the emergency room. I know myself, like, I was too afraid to show up in an emergency room. Absolutely. You know, I meant it on my own. So it's like, I know that's like an understandable level to start, but a lot of times it's law enforcement at the first line. And we are truly, as women, invalidated because these men use this as a form of control. It's just a way to manipulate further.
I learned this. They said that they don't like to look at themselves.
Absolutely.
So that's why they want that.
Well, and not only that, but trauma, that's a coping defense. There isn't a lot of, you know, resources for women to feel comfortable enough to go into therapies. I mean, it's a hard line to cross, even for me. It took me 4 years to get here to this point,
Thank
to
you.
be able to speak about it. But up until that point, I was in silence. I was embarrassed by my addiction issues, but that was the only way I knew how to cope.
Yeah, and you had to survive.
And I had to
And you
survive.
thought that coping through CDS was a way of
Right.
getting
So
through
a
the
lot
day,
of us end
getting
up
through the pain.
in halfway houses. A lot of us end up in addiction, centers and that's
Helena and I worked in jail together, working with women, and overwhelmingly we saw women turning to CDS as a way to cope and to anesthetize their pain, particularly in terms of domestic violence, sexual abuse, trafficking. Helene, and then did you want to share anything, Helene? Or Gloria?
Yeah. I spent so many nights in the emergency room with my mother, who brought my brother. They attended the child, but they never asked my mother, who was just beaten, sometimes cut, shot at. They never asked her what happened that you had to bring this child. It was always something, the child fell or what, but it was always because my mother was being beat. So much so that one night she was beat so bad, we lived in a brand new house, an upcoming community. But she ran out and had to hide in a structure as my dad was out looking for her with the gun. The only thing that saved her is they just taught me how to use a cell phone and how to call 911. And of all the abuse, he never went to jail for abusing my mother. And she was beat down emotionally so bad, she tried to commit suicide. Praise God, thank God that she overcame that. But as I grew up to become a diapers worker and to really kind of see what was going on, so under Most Excellent Way, I have what's called Daughters Against Domestic Violence. And if we don't teach our daughters, because it's not a given, but what I learned is daughters so often choose relationships like their mother.
Right.
And that cycle must be broken, but it's about education, not just the survivor. And I'm feeling you right here, not just the survivor, but the school system, the medical system.
Right.
The police came to my house more often. I say I have the most violent home in South Carolina, but never did he go to prison. Never did he go to jail for any of that. And my brothers, when we finally got away, unfortunately turned to substance use. This is just a subject that really touches me,
Right.
And again, for those children, something must be done. And you can't wait until they're in foster care. You can't wait until, relatives step in. Every time a mother comes, miscarriages, God knows how many miscarriages my mother had. Who asked? No one asked. It's all you have to ask the right questions because they live in fear. And as a daughter against domestic violence, it really takes educating yourself and breaking that cycle.
And also talking about
And
it.
talking about it.
When
I didn't know how to talk about it. I was a social worker, and you just began to recognize things that you're familiar with, and you're like, oh, this is what this is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, now I understand.
Trauma becomes physiological.
Yeah, my mom died, not from the physical abuse, but because of the breakdown of her body, mentally and physically, because of the years of abuse. And so it really, we have to start with not just the daughters, but our children, to give them more information. When I worked at it, I'm done. So I've been on this, I don't know, it all comes together. Every time Jim had me, it always brings something out. But I worked at the domestic violence shelter, and I've seen the children become withdrawn, and no one is asking, what's wrong with this baby? They've witnessed too much.
Right.
There's a transference of that pain from mother to children. And it's just, this is a huge topic. And I'm thankful.
No, I appreciate, so we talked about 4 things so far, and I just want to sort of capture it. Yeah, because we're gonna keep going, but the first thing is, obviously, we need to understand the harm, to go to your point, about educating police so that the victims don't become victimized, and that's in the nature. Second, when you talked about how you were strangled, how you were being strangled for 4 hours, and in your mind's eye is, I can't
I
push
can't
back.
push back. Like he tormented me. Then he started putting his hands on me. It got to the point where he hit me in the face with a glass bottle. Some of my teeth just started to get back. I'm getting so much work done on my teeth now. I even got a disappointment coming up. Like a lot of things were messed up in my face. You after after like the third hour, the neighbors heard me screaming outside in the middle of the street. Finally called the cops. The cops finally came, and like they weren't gonna really arrest him on beating me up. They were gonna arrest him on the fact that he was a drug dealer, and he swung on them, and that's the reason they really arrested him. Because I don't feel like they arrested him for me.
Sure.
So
then we also talked about some of the areas that you raised, and also about children. So the importance of education, educating children of the victims of domestic violence on how they can cope, right? That was an area.
yes.
Evelyn, I have something like, the officers need to, and the judges need to like coincide on what their situations are in their offices at that. Like, communication sucks, because if I'm getting strangled and you downgrade that to something else, like literally I had major facial reconstruction. So if I get punched in my face, I could literally die. So that means I'm going to jail too, because I'm going to protect me at all. So I'm not scared of what's going to happen to me. I'm scared of what I'm going to do to them, because what I'm afraid of. I'm not scared. I'm afraid to die. I don't want to die today. Like, I have a lot to do. So there's people to talk to, but we really don't know who to talk to, because they keep shuffling you around to the next person, and you don't get any answers.
Yeah. So I think that's another point. But the third point that I wanted to talk about is what doctors said, to make sure that when women come into the emergency department, that the doctors have the resources and have the referral points that they can refer you to for a point of trauma. And I think that's important.
And the police station.
Yes, I really.
What?
And the police stations. When I went to the police station, my ex was following me. He was stalking me. They sent me to the hospital. That sent me to the mental hospital, the part where I was mentally insane. They thought I was crazy. They thought I was making my story up. So I went to the police for help, and the police sent me to the hospital. The hospital sent me to the a mentally insane ward.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's obviously, and stalking, cyber stalking is itself also, that was my fourth point, is also another source of violence, even if it's financial violence, even if it's intimidation. So that's the fourth point. And
Just one like
could you speak up?
Yes, sir.
Introduce yourself.
Dr. Perez Figueroa. I'm from the School of Public Health. And what we do in the School of Public Health is like we study systems. So listening to this conversation, and I would like to thank you for like all your experiences that you are sharing with us. But like what is evident is like that domestic violence doesn't come alone. It comes with other diseases, with other conditions. It comes like in the context also of communities like that have like unemployment, incarceration, that have like people with different races, with different languages, and like all those factors play a role. And the other thing like that I think like that is critical is like like going back like to that reference, that metaphor that Gloria used about like a puzzle. When we think about like all those systems that we have, like when you go to the doctor and you receive services, it's important for us to address but also it's important to have coordination throughout those systems and communication
Sure.
throughout
I
those
just
systems.
want to keep going and drill down on the specifics, but I agree that's a macro challenge. But on this here, I mean, what we're hearing is whether it's the complaint, whether it's children, whether it's cyber stalking, it's what happens in real time to the woman, to the mother, to the children in real time, from the point of violence to the point of response to the point of survival. So I just, and we're coming, we've only got about 20 minutes left. But I think if I could just talk on, and we heard the doctors say, we need a protocol and we need a referral source. We talked about the importance of law enforcement understanding and not victimizing the women. Gloria talked about the mother and the fact that the perpetrator wasn't arrested, the impact on the children. But I just wanted Tamika to talk about the criminal justice system respond to you.
Well, two things. I
Chris?
think, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. I think it's very important that I'm hearing a lot about the fear factor, and that's major because again, when we do come into these rooms, we don't know who to trust. We don't know if our business is going to get out there. We don't know if you're going to call my boyfriend or the husband. You don't know that. So the first thing is first. One thing I always just say, you got to be able to stand. I heard what the young lady said. I couldn't see her face. I think that was Evelyn down there. Kudos to all the women that is speaking up and have a voice because that takes courage. We have to remember that, again, when we endure these things, whether it's going to court, going to jail, and I've been there, right? I've never been domestically abused, but I've been in jail. I caught a case. But we have to always remember that when the governor is stating about the court process, we know sometimes it's not fair. Sometimes we're not getting the right information, even at the hospitals. We got to fight with the doctors, making kudos to the doctors. Love you, doctors. No problem there. But I say this because it's in every arena. You have to be able to know who you are, stand who you are, even when we getting beat down, when we even getting smacked the daylights out of. I've been a part of it during my family childhood, but again, we are affected. But that doesn't mean that we gonna lay down and die.
So why don't we just pull off of what Tamika said? I mean, I think the challenges here, what we've heard is, and I appreciate from the public health perspective, the large institutional challenges, but I think there are challenges immediately in real time, right? So we have a charge, we have a responsibility ethically to provide for trauma-informed care. Right. As you shared, we have a responsibility to look at systems. But if you're the woman that's facing the strangulation, the abuse, the financial hijacking of your assets, your bank accounts, your phones, your identity theft, right? And when somebody tells you, well, that's not a criminal case, that's a civil case, and you're just trying to survive. I think what we heard is one is more education in terms of education is critical across, and we've got to figure out who are we educating? What's the scope of that education? Second is obviously in terms of law enforcement, obviously in terms of children, obviously in terms of physicians. What other, if you will, what other devices, what else do women require that are in crisis that can help them feel more assured, strengthened by our advocacy? Are there any other ideas of what?
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Moore from Rutgers in the Violence Prevention and Victim Assistance Office as a student assistant, and I am the ambassador and volunteer coordinator. And along with the education, I think it's also how to have this discussion, the pinpointed questions of what is going on. But if I just tap somebody and I say, hey, how are you? What are you going through? That's not enough of an in-depth question. And so giving these resources to students to those who are in graduate school, to those who are in undergrad, to see those red flags as early as possible is such a big component because it's not taught. You can see the cycle, but once you're in the cycle, it's hard to get out. And to have those resources beforehand, to know the questions beforehand, to have a specific place to go that you can pick up the phone and you can dial 8 and it'll take you straight to, and all you have to say is, I feel uncomfortable, and somebody is going to come, whether that's RUPD, the Newark department, the New Brunswick department. Having that discussion at early ages is part of the education, because if you don't know, you'll never know.
Also
Thank you.
publicity, putting up flyers in churches, temples, colleges, universities, so that people know where to go. A lot of us don't know, right?
Sure.
How many? So that's
So why don't we just talk about the repeating the cycle? And somebody said that's so important. Did you want to touch on that?
Repeating the cycle because, like you said, I watched my mom go through certain things, and I didn't realize till I became an adult, and I'm four healthy boys in, that I've done the same thing my mother did. But if I had those red flags, or I knew how to read those red flags, I'd have been able to say, you know what, I don't think this is good for me. And but I didn't. Like, I grew up in Bergen County. I was born in Haywood. I came to Newark in my later years. My mom's from Newark, but it doesn't matter where you're from. It's all the same. Like, if you know what you're looking for, you're able to stop it before it progresses to something.
And I apologize, some of the folks have to go because they have to catch the last concluding words. Go ahead.
Every day is a new day, and just be thankful.
And I will say that you'll get stronger as a result of this, and you'll be able to and be more compassionate with people in your life and your life.
I really want to say thank you for the cyber stalking.
Yes.
Because people destroy your life, your bank accounts, your phone records.
Yes.
Literally, we've had cases in NJRC where literally people will tell the woman's bank not to pay a bill so that they will literally be out of compliance when they have regular bills being paid.
He's had females pose as me.
Wow.
If he has
Wait, no,
information,
okay.
everything he's had females pose as me, because he knows all my information. This man, he's kidnapped me, he's kept me hostage, I've been thrown down the stairs. He's done everything possible. And now he knows he can't get to me physically with the restraining order, but now he's getting to me through the technology.
All right, and we'll talk.
We pray for you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
So, and we've got time just to go around the table. So what I want to do is start with, we'll start with Rahat and go around the table and just to say, and I've got my great trustee aide here, Cindy, who may be taking notes, may not be. But Rod, just at this place in time, focusing on domestic violence, what should we be doing as a community? What should we be doing as a state? What should we be doing in terms of New Jersey reentry to make sure we're championing our women?
Thank you. So I think we've talked about what the specific needs are, and where the gaps are, and what services are needed. And I think as an agency, we should focus on putting forth proposals to the state government and to the courts on how to better be able to manage situations when DV is involved. What questions do judges need to ask? What questions do prosecutors need to ask? What questions do public defenders need to ask? What can the state do to be able to help women in these situations? So I think those are.
For greater clarification for questions, go. And give your name again.
I'm Michelle, and I'm a student at Rutgers. I'm a master's student. I see, I've gone through undergrad at Rutgers, and I've never received any information about domestic violence or anything. So it was mentioned at my orientation, but after that, there was nothing else to be said and no resources. So I feel like there's definitely like a need for
Thank you.
awareness.
My M1.
Hi, my name is Hilsa. I'm a medical student at Robert Johnson Medical School. And two things that I wanted to reflect on or just take away from was that one, like really having resources for medical students and also like future like healthcare workers on how to like identify abuse. Like I know we mentioned that, so that was really important to me. That stuck out. And then second is like having.
Are you brown nosing your teacher? That's not true.
And then the second one was like having resources for children as well. So like after
Yes.
school programming,
Yes.
or like some sort of like like community programming for children.
Good.
Trauma
Gotta give your
informed training, Iris Nova Cleaning Horizon, NJ Health,
And
government
Iris is a
programs.
great friend. She's been so supportive of her women. But go ahead.
Um,
Trauma-informed care.
Trauma-informed care, cross-disciplinary, so from our healthcare workers to law enforcement to education to any touch point in society, they should be trauma-informed to identify those victims in domestic violence.
Heather Torres.
Thank you, Heather.
Domestic violence survivor. I definitely believe that the police need to be trained better. And I go to survivor therapy and we teach, they teach DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy. And that helps me. It's not that I didn't see the red flags, it's that I couldn't. And this therapy has helped me become aware.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. I'm Tamika McReynolds, Department of Family Services, and I'm also the host of Get Your Mind Right on 94.7 The Block. I'm just going to say, Governor, it's communication. We have you survivors to be able to share. We have 4 million listeners. I think it's about the access on what we have and what we can stand on. So.
Good. Dr. Bachman?
I think we have to destigmatize it. If I told everyone here I have hypertension, you'd go, oh, are you taking medication?
Yeah.
If I said I'm a victim of domestic violence. So we have to destigmatize.
Rafael Perez Figueroa. So I would say bringing people with life experiences to the table in anything that we do in our decision making and making sure that we listen to your experiences.
Dr. Sengupta, cardiologist, thank you for having me in this program, and we are here to help. Always talk to your doctors. Any doctor that you see, ask for help. We will help you.
Doctor?
Dr. Kusum Punjabi, emergency doctor. I think I'm going to add now to my history taking the last question. Do you feel safe?
Amen.
Amen.
Doc?
My thoughts are that we need education and mental health services starting in elementary school, not just for women or for people who may be at risk for being victimized, but also for the perpetrators.
Sure. Thank you.
So again, I'm with Global Health. These problems are global. They're not just here in New Jersey. But another global response is to have a patient navigator, have a friend, have your support network, whether it's the social worker or whether it's your family members.
Yes.
We talked about family members to step up. You need to do this path with someone else.
Sure.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Asia Smith, and I'm the board chair for the New Jersey Domestic Violence Fatality Review Board. And I'm also a board member of the New Jersey Coalition to End Domestic Violence. And I just want to say this has been an amazing discussion. And I want to point out the importance of our board, if I can just take 2 minutes to do that. What we do is we analyze the domestic violence homicides, murder-suicides, and familicides here in New Jersey. And of the 13 years that I've been on the board and over 130 cases that I've analyzed, one of the overarching concerns has always been what would have happened had there been communication between the systems? How might the outcomes been differently if the police officers understood how to respond effectively to an individual, a victim, how the courts could have responded, what the educational system looked like. So having said that, I appreciate this discussion and I am here as a resource and I would love to help to develop some communication.
We're going to do that. And then we've got our conference coming up on, we always do it on Holy Thursday, the Thursday before Good Friday, before Easter. And so you'll be invited along with this big shot, Nicole somebody or other.
Gabrielle Moore, Rutgers graduate, School of Public Health. And I think my 3 takeaways would be education, training, but also how to have this discussion and to make sure that spaces like this are open to everyone, even those who are teachers, adding in that education and adding in that children as well. So bringing that awareness properly.
Thank you.
Rachel Athos, a Master's of Public Health student at Montclair State University. I would agree with what everyone was saying in terms of education as well as training, as well as communication as well. I do work at an urgent care center as an office supervisor, so if there's a way to receive those resources to provide proper point of care to these patients from the moment that they're coming in to the moment that they're coming out. At least the point of care that I've noticed now, it's kind of basic. It's not really specific, more personalized of how can we prompt these questions of more than, you know, are you okay? Especially if the abuser is in the room with them, it makes it even more difficult for them to express how they feel. So just prompting those questions as well as having proper education and training to not only the staff, but also to the patients as well as what we can do for them when they are discharged.
That's great.
Great.
Could
So-
you send us a little note? That was really
Yes.
insightful. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Christine Lee, medical student at Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. First, thank you so much to everyone who shared their stories. It really was such a privilege even to be sitting at this table with you. But I think from my perspective as a future physician and having previously worked in the social work field at Boston Healthcare for the Homeless Program, I think understanding that the patients who come to physician, they're the most well-versed on what has happened in their own lives and about their own stories. And so understanding that and respecting that, and then knowing that what I can contribute is better understanding of what local resources there are to share and to become a better advocate for them as a physician.
Thank you, Doctor.
Jasmine Allen, I'm from Rutgers Health as well as a master's student at Rutgers. All of this is very new to me, so I'm just here taking in this information, but I do believe that education and communicating and having the resources, I wouldn't even know where to direct someone to be honest.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your honesty.
So thank you for sharing. I'm hoping that we can make some changes for you all.
I loved your honesty. Thank you.
Yeah,
Dr. Sinowski?
Yeah, I'm an OBGYN, and I think the importance of sensitivity towards the patients and helping our future healthcare providers learn how to look for signs and things like domestic violence that don't, you know, they may not present that way, and abuse may not present that way, but other things that may lead you to help look into the patient's history more.
That goes to Rahat's having specificity in the question.
Nicole Etienne, I am with Rutgers Health, but here as a guest of Dr. Bachman. A couple things I took away.
We're all a guest of Dr. Bachman.
Love you, Dr. Bachman.
Give it up for Dr. Bachman.
A couple things I took away were one, we have so many ways to navigate various systems of care, and this is such an important topic, and where the population is often silenced and are victims. I understand it from firsthand. So one, as a person, if I see something, I'm going to say something and speak up for someone who may not be able to speak up for themselves. And then on a professional level in the medical field or whatever point of entry, perhaps I would like to see what we have for education, the EAP for those students, something like that where we can't lose them and we're able to follow them. So even if they're not ready for help now, they're not lost.
Well, that goes to Doctor's point earlier.
Exactly.
Follow up.
Exactly.
Great point. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marva Fuller. I'm a guest of Nicole, and
so that means indirectly you're a guest of Dr. Bachman.
What I observe here is all females. I would like to bring men into more positions. Men who are incarcerated, men who are husbands, men who are lovers, men who don't abuse. Men need to be educated and be part of this forum.
Thank you.
I'm Juliet, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who shared. Yeah, we really appreciate that. And then the thing that I would say, like my takeaway is believe survivors. Yeah, we need to invest in people. I know, I think Erin had mentioned like there are resources, but there's not enough, right? And like that's like a big systemic issue, but we don't invest in people, we invest in other things.
Thank you.
And my name is Sharon Pagan from the Reentry Program of Elizabeth. I just want to thank everybody that opened up and shared as well as myself. Like, I know it's not an easy topic, sharing on domestic violence. I got a lot today. Like, my spirit was fed. You know, being comfortable in an uncomfortable situation.
Yes.
Wow. You know, I remember when I was younger,
I was in a domestic violence situation too, but at that time I was only like 15, pregnant, 7 months pregnant, thrown down the stairs, thrown in a tub of hot water, and going back to the abuser, being comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, thinking that it was normal. But through God's grace and mercy, like I was able to get some help, counseling, and thank God for support group. I heard one of the young ladies talk about like support groups is very important because I was able to forgive myself in order to forgive him. And come to find out, he came from domestic violence abuse too, right? Now it's a whole nother abuse. Now the abuser is financial and verbal abuse. And thank God that I'm able to notice before it becomes physical. And I just thank y'all for inviting me. And I'm gonna bring it up to the recovery center too, see if we could start facilitating groups too on domestic violence. I think it's very important for us to get together and facilitate groups. It's very important for our kids too, because I do have teenagers.
Yep.
And I
We're
need
gonna
them
follow
to
up
be
on that.
enlightened too.
It's a great suggestion.
This was very inspirational, and I appreciate everyone that came out. I got a lot from this group, and I'm grateful.
Thank you.
That's
Good.
all.
Yeah, I'm Ruthie Byrne, and I learned a lot today in a very sad way, I must say. And it seems to me, just listening to everybody, that what we really need is more structure from the government. It sounds to me that that's the major missing piece. You shut me down about the fines, Jim. However,
No, I didn't want to talk about our personal fines publicly.
No. Adam, but why are we fining these people? Why are they caught up not being able to pay what? Why would somebody be fined for this? That was my question. Not getting personal, but just anyway. We need New Jersey to step in and take over.
Court Tuesday?
Just that I think survivors are incredibly knowledgeable about what they and others need, and I learned so much today listening to you all. But survivors should really be at the forefront of shaping the resources that they get, and then other people.
Hi, my name is Shaquela Mitchell. I'm here on behalf of Integrity's Halfway House, also the Pregnant Postpartum Women
Guys,
Program.
we're about to wrap up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Pregnant Postpartum Women Program, and it's also / Mommy and Me for mothers like me trying to get our children back through DCP&P. I thought this was very enlightening, especially being a recovering addict. Survived domestic violence, and I just learned a lot here, and I really hope the resources do come through, because they will be very useful for not only us but our children.
And what you said was so powerful today. What you said today was so powerful about children.
Yes.
I heard that from Gloria in terms of her own mother and her perspective.
Yes.
I heard that from you. So clearly we're going to take that back. I was with the state legislative process as being part.
And Ellen said something I think is good. When you think of alcoholics, you have Al-Anon, so those are children of alcoholics.
Yes.
There should be a program for domestic abuse.
Yes, because I feel like if the mothers can't step up to save for themselves and the children can see it, they can say to the teacher, hey, I think my mommy is being abused. I think my daddy is hitting on my mommy, instead of sitting there watching the abuse happen, and they feel so helpless they can't help us.
Yeah, and they're afraid.
And they're scared to say something, because the first thing a teacher is told to do to go through the DCP&P, and they're scared to be taken from their mom because of that.
Yep.
So I think there's a place for that.
All right, we're going to wrap up. Our last from our wise friend.
Nicole Morella again from the Coalition to End Domestic Violence. And honestly, it's been mentioned a couple of times around the table, and I think Iris, you summarized it well, that we need every system to be trauma informed, whether we're talking about healthcare, law enforcement, Board of Social Services, schools. We firmly believe at the coalition, every person has a role, every community has a role, every organization, every system has a role to play, and we need to be better informed in terms of how we do that. And not just for the victim survivor, but again, for the person who may be causing harm and causing those children to experience further harm as well.
Okay. And Dr. Bachman, do you want to just conclude in comments?
Absolutely. I think it's been said already that this has really been eye-opening for all of us, especially for those of us who are involved with individuals who have suffered all of the domestic violence, sexual abuse, trauma abuse, etc. And we basically are now more prepared, and we have a list of what we have to do next.
So I just want to wrap up and pick up what Dr. Bach said. I mean, thanks to Francine LaFrackley at the LaFrack Wellness Center, who provide diagnostic screenings on dental, on medical, on mental health and addiction treatment. And then today we also celebrated our micro grants with some of our benefactors. But what we needed as part of this conversation, and Dr. Bachman visits Edna Mahan regularly, as does the entire team, is to understand that women of domestic violence, women who are victims of sexual abuse and trafficking, can themselves become a victimization of the criminal justice process. And we need to have, I mean, Courtney's been looking at New York state law, California law, Iowa, and then we have to look at alternatives to long-term incarceration. And so the purpose of this conversation here was to reshape, was to reorient all of our thinking to understand that the trauma, the sacrifice, and exposure that a woman confronts in these situations. And from your experience in real time, to talk about how your perspective shaped your attempts at survival, and how the criminal justice system from outside may look at all of this, but not understanding your reality. And so I just wanted to say on behalf of the New Jersey Reentry Corporation, our medical director, Dr. Bachman, and we were all here because of Dr. Bachman. But I want to say thank you, because what's so important is that, as you said, that men, that legislators, that law enforcement understands the unique factors that a woman suffers by virtue of domestic violence, and how that shapes her perspective as she tries to navigate the criminal justice system. And when we're talking about cyber stalking, we see that more and more often with our women. Literally men taking people's identity and creating havoc with their lives, both in terms of technology and financially, and in terms of their lives. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you, because I thought this was really powerful. And Gloria, you know, we're going to have a concluding prayer. Go ahead. They can speak a little loud.
We thank you, God, for this gathering. We thank you for the impartation of knowledge, God. And we thank you for the like-mindedness of our leaders that have pledged to do something on behalf of those that find themselves victim of domestic violence. And so we thank you in his name and for his sake. Amen.
Amen. And so this April, we will have our New Jersey Reentry Conference. Again, it's always held at St. Peter's University, but it's focusing in on domestic violence, sexual abuse, and human trafficking, and women's response to those crimes. What New Jersey should be doing, to pick up on the words of Ruthie Byrne, what New Jersey should be doing to be more responsive to those needs and provide support for women as they are trying to travel that journey to a safer, healthier place. So again, have a round of applause for all of you. Thank you, Dr. Bachman.